The human body is under attack, which is why over the years I've broadened and in some cases generalized my definition of self-defense to also include healthy living. My first website that went online 20 years ago, HypnoAthletics, states HypnoAthletics is exercising your mind towards universal harmony and spiritual wisdom through healthy living and self-defense. But in some cases, healthy living and self-defense are the same thing. As a matter of fact, healthy living now on the planet Earth that we live on is in fact a form of self-defense because of the fact that we are under attack. There's a full-on assault on the human body, and by being aware of what you put in, on, and around your body is a form of self-defense through awareness and the action that you take and what you eat, what you drink, what you shower with, what you put on your skin in various different ways, and what you consume in various different forms for whatever reasons. And so before I even get to that, I'm going to lead in with some drama. So some things that I've heard before where, so I've been invited to recruitment parties before for network marketing companies that I never signed up for because I didn't realize what it was, because a lot of times they use a lot of bait and switch methods to get people to come, and I wasn't familiar yet with the language or where it came from. You know, this or you keep your options open, you look like a smart guy, you look like a sharp guy, do you keep your options open for some extra income and business opportunities and all that kind of stuff. And the one thing I'm remembering that's actually connected to this in a proximal way, or just that one of these parties that I went to, I remember that they were serving various different snack items and things like that. Oh yeah, I remember I went with a friend who was a massage therapist, and I forget, it was her upline, and I forget the actual products they were selling are actually really good. And now what's interesting about it is that they're actually in common use. It's like red light therapy stuff, from that, using infrared. Anyway, but I was being very cautious about what I was eating, and the only thing that I ate that was there was they had carrot sticks and celery sticks and things like that. And I was asked, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you eating that? So on and so forth. And all that talk about live a little and don't be one of those. And I remember seeing something in either a movie or a TV show, or maybe just some irate person ranting on about it. But they basically were making this argument about, don't be one of those people who goes to a party and you're getting free food and you're nitpicking about how, what you're eating, what they have to eat, like how dare you, and all of this kind of talk, as if it's so abhorrent and repulsive that you care about what you put in your body, that you actually care about the chemicals, the molecules that go into your body for your health and longevity. And longevity is the key, because then it's going to be these same people who years later are complaining about, they've got heartburn and arthritis and achy this and that and can't breathe and sleep apnea and, lethargy and loose skin and all these wrinkles and on and on and on, just all of these metabolic syndromes, that I'm on this medication and it's heart, it's blood pressure and heart medication and cholesterol, this and that. And these are the people who were before telling you that you were uptight because you were being a picky eater and you weren't eating everything that was just thrown in front of you. I mean, the fuck do you think this is? Like the people who make those arguments, it's interesting because, look, being an insecure or a bullying type of shamer, no matter what position you come from, is kind of stupid, right? You don't just start attacking people for no reason for what they're doing. So if you're the crunchy person who wants to eat all the organic stuff and only the veggies and vegan stuff at, a gathering because you want to be careful about what you put in your body, that's fine, but you don't need to shame the people by saying, man, you just have a bunch of junk food, right? Like, what up with the healthy options, Keep it to yourself. Just buy your actions, just don't do them. And, conversely, the people who have a bunch of junk food in there and observe the person who's just eating the crunchy stuff, the greens and the raw vegetables, leave them alone. What's all this, making all this noise about, man, that's really ungrateful, and, I made all this food. Like, dude, so what? Like, you can eat shit if you feel like it. It's not, everybody's not eating the same thing. So it works on both sides, right? And so another thing about this is that, as I started off, the human body is under attack. We're constantly being bombarded, assaulted by various different molecules that have no business being in our body. And the fact of the matter is that we cannot completely avoid it, because we already have enough of them. There's so many byproducts from industrial manufacturing. We've got microplastics, we've got various different pollutants in the air, we've got all of the different pollutants, including carbon monoxide that comes from car exhaust, on and on and on. There are pesticides, there are so many things in the colognes, in the lotions, in the perfumes, in the makeups, in the soaps. Like, there's just an onslaught of various different products that are disagreeable to the human body. So the one stance that we can make is, or one of because we can definitely choose more natural products that we put on our skin and that we bathe in, and clothes that we wear, and on, right? But one of the major things, because it goes directly into our digestive system, and we don't have as many barriers of defense when you put something directly into your mouth, right, and swallow it, going down your esophagus. Like, that is a completely different kind of hell that you're putting yourself through, because now it's getting into your system in a place where it's supposed to be distributed to all of your blood. You put things on your skin, eventually it gets into your blood, but you have the barrier of the skin, you can wash it off before it gets absorbed. There's so many different things happening there, right? And so we have that choice. What are we doing with how we consume? And it goes to the information as well. So, in our emotions, emotional states. And so that is why I have combined eventually that the fact that healthy living is a form of self-defense. And just now, as I was leaving, I forget where I came from. Oh, Trader Joe's. And I got these organic power greens that I'm eating straight out of the bag. Baby kale, baby chard, and baby spinach. And as I was pulling onto Virginia Beach Boulevard, I passed by a car with these young girls in it, and it reminded me of something, because the girl on the passenger side that was closest to me, her face was blotched out with acne. And a lot of times when I see people like that, I notice they're insecure because their skin is breaking out. And I'm pretty sure that there are people who make fun of them, because there's a lot of assholes. Thank goodness I wasn't one of them. I was never that kind of bully. I was a bully. People used to try to mess with me because I was a skinny kid with glasses, and I'll fuck them up, and they wouldn't bother me anymore. And the word would get around, don't mess with the skinny kid with the glasses, he's a monster. But one of the things that I've realized long ago is that acne is actually systemic in many ways. It's not, yes, it can happen from dirty skin. Like, I've been out camping, or I slept on some sheet sometimes that should have been washed before, and I've definitely broke out on my skin, and I've had stuff happen, and I'm a wild person, so I'm outdoors, and I camp out and sleep in strange places all the time. So I know you have to make sure your environment is sterilized as much as you possibly can, because stuff that does get on your skin can cause you acne issues. But most of the acne that you see happening with people is not because, unless everybody's going to admit that has acne that they're just sleeping on just filthy sheets and shit. Like they're just basically just rolling around in a pig pen, right? Like that's not what's happening. Most people are generally clean, especially with their beds and things like that, or at least I would hope. I mean, maybe not, but what I am saying is that is not the major culprit, because of course I know, like I said, I know this because of the fact that I sleep in so many different places. And I mean, I get around and I travel and I've done so many things. Slept in hotels that were questionable, so on and so forth. But one experience that I had that really drove this point home for me was when I first started doing this protocol that I created called Fast, and the companion one that was a follow-up called Feast. And yes, it's interesting that they both have to do with things that you can do with food, right? On the one hand, fast is when you abstain from, and feast is when you take in a lot more. And, I guess I'm a clever guy sometimes, but FAST is an acronym for Food Awareness Subjective Testing. And FEAST is Food Express Awareness Subjective Testing. And basically what it is a protocol of getting your body to a baseline of what's in your system, meaning, like, for example, just for an example, don't do this. I'm not a doctor, so don't do this at home. I'm just giving this as an example to keep it really simple, because whenever I start to explain it, then I start going off on even more tangents about the protocol. I don't need to be explaining the whole darn thing right now. So, for example, one of the things that you do is you eat the same thing all the time, day in and day out, to get to a baseline. So, for example, I would go to Trader Joe's and get these organic greens, and that's all I would eat, the same amounts every single day for 8 weeks straight, for 2 months. And by doing that, I would get my body to a baseline. Now, once again, we need a varied diet. We don't only need the greens. We need proteins. We need fats. We need some carbs, right? So I'm not suggesting in any way to just eat green salad, baby kale, chard, and spinach every day, all day for 8 weeks. You'll probably pass out and have issues and then blame me for it. But that's not what's going on here. That's not what I'm talking about. All right, I'm talking about that's an example, so I don't use a whole bunch of different ingredients of that. The idea is that all of your meals are exactly the same. They're varied meals, but they're varied in the different kinds of micro and macronutrients that are in them, but they all come from the same brand and the same amounts, and so on and so forth. I'll be right back. Okay, so the point is that you basically are eating as clean a diet as you possibly can. And what I mean by clean is that what you're consuming has the very least amount of ingredients possible. Hopefully only the thing that it's identified as that you're eating, right? Like, chicken, if you eat chicken nuggets, right? Why does it have to do with like machine separated chicken and then like 90 other chemicals that are not chicken, right? Or machine, I said machine, but the same thing, right? Mechanically separated, right? But then there's all these other things that are not chicken, right? That's when there are other things. If something is called chicken, and then you have all these other things, and they're not seasonings, right? But they're not chicken. Like, seasonings are one thing, like spices. I mean, black pepper, cumin, a little bit of salt, some sugar even maybe, right, is allowed. But these are things you can identify. And although the kind of sugar that you're using, it would probably be better if a lot of sugar wasn't added to stuff. But you understand what I'm saying. Clean means the least amount of ingredients. Like, you're eating something, it should just be that thing. Okay? And, like peanut butter. Peanut butter should have peanuts in it. Right? Like, yeah, they blended the peanuts, they crushed them up. Maybe they used some extra peanut oil in it to give it some more creaminess or viscosity, right? But come on. You see what I'm saying? So what you're doing is you're simply eating the same things every day. Like, it would be maybe this salad here, right? 5 ounces of kale, chard, and spinach, right? But that's one component. And then you have, what is this other thing I have here? And then you have 12 ounces of chicken breast, right? And it's just cooked chicken and water and 2% or less of vinegar, salt, right? So that's what I'm talking about. The least amount of ingredients is what you're going for. That's what clean means. Clean means the least amount of ingredients. Imagine, you can think of it like this. If you that when you're a kid and if you were to drop something on the floor and then you pick it up and blow it off real quick, there's like, I forget what that was called, right? It's there was like a certain time limit. I forgot what that is, but I don't think actually what I'm saying really corresponds to that just as well. But imagine you drop something on the floor and you pick it up and there's only dirt on one side of it, right? I mean, or maybe there's just like one little piece of dirt on it. What I'm saying is that, objectively what you want to see is the least amount of dirt. Okay, that's really what I'm saying. It's like you want the least amount of dirt on the things that you are consuming. Period. The more dirt, the less desirable a food should be to you mentally, psychologically, right? Emotionally. You should just not want to be putting that in your body. I mean, I'm saying should. Should is one of those words, right? That's my opinion, but it's not only my opinion, it's my professional and expert opinion as a many decades long martial artist. Sometimes I say 34 years because that's when I started capoeira, but I've been doing it before, so I'm just going to round it out to 40 years, right? I'm 48, so 8 years old. Yes, I've been doing martial arts that long. But if we go to the 20-year mark at least, right? That's still decades. It's 2 decades of when I put my first website, HypnoAthletics, online. But between that, being a personal fitness trainer, studying metaphysics, right? My professional and expert opinion as a practitioner is that it's much better to eliminate as much as possible. And that's what the protocols of fast and feast are about. You're eating as clean as you possibly can, and you're eating the same things all the time because that's the only way you're going to get a baseline. Now, it's not a baseline necessarily, although you can and maybe should do this, getting blood work done. But essentially, 8 weeks is a good enough period of time so your body starts getting rid of a lot of stuff that's in there and you're at a baseline. I know that it worked for me because in general, I eat very clean. And so when I did this, and then I started introducing different things to my body, the first time that I had some really nasty reactions was because I had remembered from a long time ago when I was younger, this snack came out called Nutrageous. And it was like a Snickers Nutrageous, and it was really good because I liked crunchy peanuts. So it was like it was like a blend between like Snickers and the Reese's peanut butter cups. It was just great. It was chocolate and peanuts. And I think it might have had peanut butter in it as well. But that's like one of my favorite combinations. If anything, I have a desire for, and if I'm ever going to eat like some snack foods like that, then it would be like something like a peanut butter cup. And they have organic ones, they have them at Whole Foods and stuff like that, but I just don't generally have cravings for those type of things. Although thinking about it now, it's kind of giving me a craving for it. But I've also worked out today and didn't eat that much yet, and I just started eating right now, and it's 6:20 in the evening. So as long as I eat, and I'll be fine. So, and plus I'm gonna have my chicken breast, and I'm gonna use my hot honey that I have. So that'll satisfy my carbo sweet cravings. And so when I had these candy bars, on the second day after eating it just one time, I started breaking out. I had zits in places that I was surprised that you could get zits. They were on my head, like in weird places on my head, and inside my ear. Not necessarily in the canal, but in the, in the creases inside the ear. There were zits. Like it was crazy, and I thought to myself, now this is fascinating. How could this be? And the only thing that I had changed was what I was eating. I had my baseline and I introduced those things. And so then, of course, I stopped. And then that's when Feast took over, right? So FAST is food awareness objective testing. Feast, you don't have to do it as long. I just went a week. I think it was actually a little bit more than a week, because then all the zits and everything cleared up. And so then I went another week. So it was probably about 2 weeks. And then I introduced it again to see if anything would happen. And sure enough, zits broke out in my ear, like weird place, like it was just gross. And I felt gross. And I just, when I think about it now. And, you know, and this is not me bashing the company, although I just tend to generally have an aversion towards most junk food now, because to me, they're all like that. These kind of issues come with these kind of foods that are manufactured in this way. For some reason, I mean, you would think chocolate and peanut butter can't go wrong with that, but when you look at the ingredients on the label, you'll see that that's not it, and it's not clean. And so, to my point, what I was saying, I know I took a long circuitous route to get here, but the fact of the matter that I did this over and over again and realized that a lot of these blisters and boils and things were happening on my skin. And then sometimes I even noticed there was a point in time where I thought, did I drink something hot? Why does my mouth feel sore and burning? And so there was also something from in the food that was actually causing my inside of my mouth to feel sore. And so that was when I really decided to forever abandon those kind of snack foods. And I've just never gone back to them ever again, because of those really just very uncomfortable and very revealing experiences. And I know that at some point in time, I began by talking about how our bodies are under assault. And that a major factor, a major strategy and tactics that we can apply for self-defense in general is to be aware of, every time we're eating, to read labels and to make sure, so tactically we're putting only in those things that we find to be as clean as possible, or fast in the sense of what the word means. Don't eat anything. Abstain. It's one of the reasons why I have not eaten until now, because I've been doing various other things, and I didn't get near the stores that I wanted to, that had the products that I wanted to, and it was only just now that I was able to get there. So then I decided, okay, I'm going to take a break and go in there and eat in between these gigs. And so that's what I did. So ultimately, in many ways, intuitively, we've already known this, and a lot of the things that we hear about eating well make sense, especially in the age of like clean living and raw foods, when that started coming into the fore. Because before it was, all about the food guide pyramid and all that kind of nonsense, where it was like they were just focusing on fats, carbs, and proteins, right? But for a fact, you should just know that this is not true. That's not the end all be all answer, because people are still sick and tired and struggling with cravings and all kinds of crazy things going on with their body. And because even when there's fat-free this and sugar-free that, but you're still drinking the chemicals. Like, if you're getting fat-free sugar-free cola, but it's got all kinds of other stuff to make it taste a certain way, and plus all those other chemicals. It's like a chemistry laboratory. These molecules that are not good for your body, that are wreaking havoc inside of you. And that's the problem. It's not necessarily the reducing the sugar is not helping you in that case, because now you're taking on a whole other toxic load from all these other things that are already in it. It might not even been the sugar in your life that was causing you the problems that you're having with drinking the cola. Imagine that. For some people can drink like these organic colas that have like stevia or some of these other natural sweeteners and I'm not claiming that stevia is good, but I'm just giving an example of what may be happening. Could be drinking these sugars and things like that in the colas, and of course consuming them moderately and not having the same kind of problems with being tired and their energy sucked dry and all this other stuff like that people have that are eating these other products or drinking these other products that do have all those chemicals in it. And so I'm not a physician. I'm just talking from my personal experience and what I know, and the fact that I read and study and pay attention to these things and have created these protocols, the fast and feast. And so I get that these things are true from experience, and it comes from research. And again, things that are intuitive and that we know. But getting back to raw foods and things that are stripped away of all the ingredients, that's what it means to eat clean. Not just you're going to have a fat-free this. Like, what did they do to that thing to make it fat-free? I was just thinking that same thing today. What chemical process? What did it do? Just like with decaf coffee, right? Like, what chemical process do you have to do to strip the natural caffeine from the coffee to make it decaffeinated? Right? You got to think about that. So what's residually left over in the coffee now because you decided to it's the same thing with all of these kind of products, with fat-free, caffeine-free, sugar-free. You're not necessarily getting a healthier product overall. Now, of course, there are some very strict things when people are dealing with, with chronic disease conditions like diabetes. You can't have the sugar, right? So I'm not talking about that. Or like certain other states where there's like too much fat for some reason that are causing issues. There are definitely really clear medical conditions and reasons why you would want to avoid certain things like certain fats and sugars, right? For those cases and medically. But in general, you're not doing yourself a favor by getting the fat-free, the caffeine-free, or the sugar-free products, or the less sodium and all this other stuff. That's not the problem. The problem is, what is that particular manufacturer doing? How are they producing that product? How are they processing that product? What is it going through, and what residue is left over on that by the time it gets into the packaging, and what's in that packaging by the time it gets to you? That is the real indicator of the nutritional and health value of that consumable product. That people, and there's a lot of things that are edible that have no business being put in your mouth. Look, the condition is that's if you want to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible, which really comes down to quality of life, which really means, do you want to feel good in your body and how you sleep and how you think and how you feel overall in general, or do you want to suffer through life and then end up putting more chemicals in your body through all of these various different medications and procedures and things that you have to do, and covering up with certain kind of clothes and makeup and surgeries and all this other kind of insane things that people do because over their lifetime they've accumulated all of this toxic burden of these things that they're putting in their body over time. That's what physiological and biological aging really is. It's the accumulation and the compounding effect of the toxins in the body over time, not the time by itself. It's the time to accumulate. It's like sediment, right? Like how a river flows through a certain place and there are minerals and things inside of it, and those minerals get deposited in a certain place and it builds up, and sometimes things can get built up so much that they create a damming effect, right, where the river becomes shallower in certain parts because certain minerals have built up in that spot, and so it creates a more shallow bed of the river. The body is the same thing. Things build up over time. You stop putting in those things that are sticky and build up, and your body will operate much better. I often go to the example of the of the lysosomes. There was a book written by a Nobel Prize winner, Christian de Duve, called A Guided Tour of the Living Cell, in which he talks about lysosomal storage disease. And this is a great example of that residual buildup, what happens in your body, because there are certain things that get into your body that cannot be metabolized, that simply cannot be passed through your body safely, and therefore they get stuck and build up and like sediment in parts of your body. In the case of the lysosomes, when they come across, because lysosome literally means destroying body. Lyse means to destroy or break apart, right? Or dissolve. And so lysosome, and some comes from soma, means body. And it's a cell, an organelle inside the cells. It's a part of the cellular machinery that takes in usually indigestible molecules by the cells itself that can't be used for nutrition, that can't be used for anything else, that's usually toxic. And what the lysosome will do is find a way, if it can, to break it apart into molecules that your body can pass more safely, or more safely than if the lysosome didn't get its enzymes on it first. And if it can't, then it gets stored in the lysosome. And after a while, if you keep on accumulating too many of that, the lysosome can't hold anymore, and eventually it bursts. And then that stuff bursts out into your other cells. And some of those other cells, lysosomes, pick it up and they store it so that it can't get to the, back into your bloodstream. But some of that gets in your bloodstream, and you may feel a little sick. You may feel a little lethargic. You may have some issues, right? So on and so forth. But eventually what happens is it just gets spread out to more cells. And now those cells have more burden and are going to now have less of a capability, because they're being burdened by this overload, to be able to process, and eventually they'll get to the point where they burst. And so you see the pattern, it just goes on and on and on this way. And that is the story of your body. And that's how acne and all kinds of other things happen. It's systemic. And it's systemic because of what you are consuming. We already have enough toxic load and toxic burden in our lives that we don't have any reason to be adding any more. We're under assault constantly. And one of our modes of self-defense is to be very cautious about what we're putting in our body. And that starts with what we eat. And then you can go from there. I am Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander.